In our countries, no one can walk the streets with a mask on their face or drive a car without a license plate. No one can send packages without showing an ID or buy a hunting weapon without giving their name. And yet, we are allowing people to roam freely on social networks without linking their profiles to a real identity. This paving the way for misinformation and cyber harassment, because it is facilitating the use of bots, and it is allowing people to act without being held accountable for their actions. Such an anomaly cannot continue. In a democracy, citizens have the right to privacy, not to anonymity or impunity, because with those two, social coexistence would be impossible. That is why I believe we must push forward the principle of pseudonymity as the functioning element of social media, and force all these platforms to link every user account to an European digital identity wallet. This way, citizens could use nicknames if they want, but in the case of a crime, public authorities would be able to connect those nicknames to real people and hold them responsible. Because accountability is not an obstacle to freedom of speech. It is an essential complement to it.
Now you might be asking yourself, hey, pianomattyb, what is the WEF and that guy talking about digital IDs have to do with the director of the FBI and a pot of honey? Legit question, but they're correlated. You see, why governments hire weak loser men is basically what I've been on this trip for years, and you probably, when I started down this road of loser men lose, this is why losers lose, why I don't have only coins, because they're all invented kind of by losers and losers lose. But it's because it's a very simple process. They're easily influenced because they're losers, right? They've never experienced their own self-worth of power, skill, tenacity, and appreciated. No one's ever appreciated them for them, if you know what I mean. And then there's a slightly more, I don't know, it's a little taboo, I suppose. But weak men never experience what some call, and maybe I coined it, I don't know, you said it, I didn't say it, vaginal abundance. Now, what that means is that at any given time in their life, there was many women who wanted to marry them, have their babies, just for them being them. Now, maybe it's because they were handsome. Maybe it's because they had a position of power that made them look like an alpha male, but it was constant. So the currency of the honeypot, the pot of honey, goes down. The more abundance you exist in, it's just like the fiat currency. If they keep on printing it, it has no value. Well, if there's always this abundance in your life, the currency of it is no longer important. So that lever that they can push starts to go down. And that's why they can't have them. They can't have these. So the WEF guy there, that is the typical, what do they call it? The milk, the lunch money patrol. Then they were maybe the street patrol. When you're driving around and you're like, are little kids directing traffic here? They're those people. Then they become maybe ticket givers, giving parking tickets. And then inevitably, because they're unremarkable retards, they go into government, because that's the easiest route for a male loser, because they're all like that. And then the powers that be know this. So they're like, well, we'll get this guy in. He's a completely unremarkable retard. He'll do anything we say. And that's what happens when it comes to Kash Patel. Like, I made a video 8 months ago. Damn it, I was going to bring up the thumbnail. Remember when I was going, if you've been here long enough, I was like, hey, who's this? What's this? Who's this? Now, it takes a certain type of, actually all men can understand that. All men can see inconsistencies in, the cosmetic hand, so to speak. When you're walking in a mall and you see, like a supermodel 8 out of 10 walking with a complete nerd. You're like, hey, something doesn't add up here. We just intrinsically know who's in each other's field. And then you start assuming, well, maybe he's some rich guy or whatever, you know, because men are attracted to women for different reasons and women are attracted to men. And that's fine. But you always can see the disparage, if it were. And so when you see Kash Patel, and let me see if I can bring up this just so we can reference the difference, the disparage, if it were, just cosmetically. Oh, that was the wrong one. That was going to bring up a video. This is going to bring up this thing. Should have done this. You know, I planned to do this, but did I? No. I just kind of put the thumbnail up to work and was like, okay, we're good. Here we go. Let's make this smaller. Right. Now, I'm going to get, this is going to piss some people off, what I'm about to say. But as a bar owner, there's a certain amount of abundance that comes with that, right? So you understand, I always said I spent 20 years in the field, you know, the field of social dynamics. I saw every aspect of every interaction between men and women right in front of me, like I was Dr. Dre and Eminem just taking notes, right? And then I was on the receiving end of abundance because of the illusion of alpha maleness that I had, and maybe slightly more attractive than the average normie. You know, not attractive enough to be a actor or model or movie star, but is slightly, you know, slightly askewed, maybe 13% or so. But we also had this group called the Brown Docs. Now, they were doctors who were East Indian, and they would come and creep out the women. Not to their own fault. You know, they didn't know any better because they'd never had any abundance. But now that they had a little bit of money, they could buy them drinks. Did they drink? No. First creep flag, right? Sober guy buying girls drinks. That's your first red flag. But this is their MO, right? Because they knew, get them a little lubed up, so to speak. Maybe they'll come home to our party where we invite a bunch of people and nobody comes but this, you know, the silly, stupid girls that don't know any better, the first timers or whatever. And their greatest achievement, and only, no, a couple of them married them. It went disastrous, of course, but their greatest achievement in life was to bang a white girl. How dare you, pianomattyb? What kind of live stream is this? Is this not a Bitcoin live stream? It is, but I mean, there's nothing to talk about. So we're going to talk about a pot of honey. Now, their biggest, like, when they were talking to a white girl, it was weird, right? Being a white guy is like, what's the big deal about a white girl? Right? Well, it's different. I don't know how to explain it, but in their social dynamic, if one of them was talking to a white girl, the others were like, oh my God, they were like so excited. They were so excited. And then a couple of them married a couple white girls. And this I said this to them before they got married. And before they actually got the white girl, right? I said, listen, there's going to be an entrepreneurial girl out there. I didn't think white, brown, it didn't matter. It's just some girl, entrepreneurial, that's going to realize that you are in the market for something. They're going to fit that market position, and they're going to take you for everything you got. Because you're chick dumb, and you're completely like, you lose all your critical thought when it comes to having a white girlfriend. You'll literally do anything. And a lot of the reason they became doctors and did all that time was to have social significance amongst other people, to maybe get that white trophy, so to speak. This is, as I was saying this, it's like, I'm really going on the risk curve here talking about this, but hey, I saw it. I'm just regurgitating things I saw and experienced as a bar owner in a bar 1,000 times over. This isn't anecdotal. It's 1,000 times over. And so sure enough, I mean, nobody listened to it. It's not like they listened to me. Oh, really? Thanks for the advice. Yeah, I won't marry this entrepreneurial girl. She loves me for who I am. She loves me for who I am, right? And then if I took it a step farther and said, listen, she doesn't. I know her and I know her past. So there's that, right? That was probably the biggest thing they never realized, is that I know the girl better than you because I've been in the field for 20 years. I know entrepreneurial women in the meat market. They didn't listen because they're blind. I get it. That's why we procreate the species, is because we give up in the lust bubble. We give up our critical thought for procreation. Now, this is why the loser men in government is such an evil thing, because the strongest will to survive is the evolutionary desire to procreate. It basically is the reason why everyone does everything they do until you procreate. And then you're on the other side of that mountain, right? So if for instance, you are in a position of power, like this guy, this Kash Patel, you can tell there's something completely wrong with him when it comes to being a leader of a strong, police force. But he's very malleable. He'll do it. He went from being like a D grade YouTube podcast guest. It was just probably about as good as he was ever going to do. And then he was drafted into the bureaucracy. It's like, we'll just put this guy in here. People seem to like him, right? They don't really like him in a position of power because he doesn't have that traditional look or appeal of power. But it doesn't matter what we think. It's what they think, what they can do with him. So they put him in, and he fails miserably. Everything he does is ridiculously bad judgment. And now you can see him white knighting for his 20-year-old girlfriend, like, or 20 years. Like, you got to understand, if this guy's 46, East Indian, this girl's 26, that is like literally a white unicorn for guys like this. They'll do anything. And now they're suing people just to, protect his girlfriend. Now, what's going to happen is his downfall, because if any of these lawsuits enter the public domain, they'll go through that process of discovery, and then his whole life's on the table. Now, there'll probably be some redacted aspects because he's the head of the FBI. But correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he live in Las Vegas with a man? Imani, don't fly too close to the sun. Yeah. To me, it's not flying close to the sun because I lived it, right? It's like I was in the field for 20 years. I saw this a million times. I saw how men behave. I saw how women behave. And in the field, in the nightclub meat market, it is the jungle. We regress back to our primitive desires. Why are you there? Why are you there? Because it's such an amazing atmosphere. Oh, the lights are great. The sound's great. The drinks are great. No, the drinks are shitty. They're the cheapest alcohol any bar can find. And then they, put the margins up 300%. The lights are as cheap as they can get. And the sound is okay, right? But really, they're there to procreate. Even the women. Women are there to maybe find their, romantic, however they view meeting their husband, right? And the men are there the same. Now, there are some people that get it and are there almost as sociopaths because they understand the game so well. Those are the guys that end up sport banging chicks for 20 years, right? When they're in their 20s and 30s, they get it. They know why people are there, and they sport bang. The rest, like guys like Kash Patel and the Brown Docs, and just as these kind of loser guys, if they ever succeed in a nightclub, they consider themselves getting lucky, right? Because they couldn't explain it to you why this girl, ended up being their girlfriend. They can't explain it to them. They just consider themselves lucky, right? And then if you're in that camp where anything good happens to you, you consider yourself lucky. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think things will end well for you, especially with when it comes to marriage or girlfriends or long-term anything. You can see it playing out now. I have to think that they planned for this. They knew that this would happen. Or maybe they just don't think, they don't really consider the downfall of men, how easy it is to unravel a weak man. Maybe because they're all weak. Maybe they think that's normal, right? But if you put in a normal, functioning, strong, I guess, handsome, and man who has experience with women in his younger years, they're not going to be seduced by a pot of honey because the currency doesn't matter to them. They're just like, another bird brain. What? I don't need another bird brain in my life. That's what they would say, right? But look at his eyes. He's like, he's talking to all his friends back home. Look at what I landed, guys. Look at her, right? That's what he's saying. Now, a normal guy who lived in abundance would be like, meh, next. We're all a bunch of bird brains anyway. And they would realize that, you understand. So, for instance, last thing on this, we'll do a little bit of TA about the market that's gone nowhere. But there would be some times in the bar days where, women would literally throw themselves at guys like me for no reason. And me knowing what I'm capable of in the social arena, I knew it was unnatural, right? So I was always like, am I being punked here? Like, what the hell's going on? Is there a camera on me? And there were, but am I being punked here? I know that it's not completely normal for this to happen because I've been down the road many times. I have the experience with it. I know entrepreneurial women when I see them, but sometimes it's just that's the way it happened. But when that ever happened to these guys, they would never think that. They would never think that there is something up. Is this weird? They would just be so unbelievably excited about the prospect of maybe any woman throwing themselves at them. Let alone, I would say she's probably a 7.9 out of 10. I haven't really taken a look at what's downstairs, so to speak. It's always just cowboy shots. But, for facial features, see their physiognomy, if that's what it's called, looks like something that would generically be attractive to most men across the grade. And that's the most important thing. So, for instance, these brown docs, they had to have social cohesion on how attractive the girl was. So, like, how sometimes you've had a girlfriend or boyfriend and your best friend has said, you actually think she's attractive? And you're like, yeah, don't you? And they're like, no. Just for whatever reason, you find them attractive and your friends don't. Now, normally that wouldn't bother a normal guy, but these brown dogs or these loser men, they need everyone to think that she's unbelievable because that's the trophy that they're going to walk around with. They can't have anyone not thinking that she's a 7.9 out of 10 min. And he would probably argue 7.9. I'm going to sue you. She's a 10 out of 10. She's an 11 out of 10. Anyway, that's it for loser man. Well, we'll see this. This will be his downfall. Make no mistake. Doesn't get better for him at this point. It just gets worse. Now, we did get a little bit of a pump, which was nice to see because you can see the steam was running out in the sentiment. Not that there's much left, but there was steam running out as we were basically console arranging on this channel of dissensions resistance, now acting as support. We got the support and the bounce up. Now we're trying to get back into this bull flag. It was a cute little bull flag, right? We're just kind of making a mountain out of a molehill. We can't really get in. It's also the 23.6% fib. We're getting rejected off of. Now we gotta listen. Unless we bust out of this at 107 again, we need to get 107 today. Bin 107. Didn't we say that this was going to happen yesterday? Yeah. Oh yeah. I had a whole different video. It was one of the I told you so videos about this, but this is nothing. We're talking about a 2% change. When we're in these big numbers, a 2% change isn't anything. It's bigger back in the day when we're in the dirty 30s and the 40s, in the 50s even. So we are above the 50 and the 20 moving average. It's bullish, but in order to get really, in order to write home about, we got to get over this this bull flag. I actually saw it. I won't bring that up. I don't want to do that anymore. On the daily chart, you can see, well, if we're going to call a spade, there's a bear flag here. Now, there's a big one and a small one. Let's just do the big one. This is a stereotypical bear flag. We have been going down since our little top here on October 25th, where we peaked out at 116. Matty B in your rare form today. Well, you know what? The reason why I talk about it is because it ruins everything, right? It's like all the problems we have in society. You know how people blame women? I blame the men who, fail to live up to their masculinity, I suppose. They're the problem. Like, when you get this OnlyFans stuff, it's the men, it's the simps that are subscribing to it. But there's, like I said, it's 80-20, 80% retards, right? So there's a big pool of unremarkable men to choose from. And the way they get over it is because there's nothing spectacular about them aesthetically, height, size, there's just the common factors about why women are attracted to men. They subvert it. So they go down academia and they become a lawyer or something, right? So it gives them a certain amount of significance, more than they had. And then next thing you know, they think their shit don't stink, and it does. It always will. And those guys that I said got married got taken to the cleaners because they were very entrepreneurial. That's what they're doing. They're there to make a buck, right? They're there to make a buck. Now we go from the breakout point here. Takes us, 88K. We've been talking about 88K for a long time. I don't want to talk about 88K anymore, although I will put, just 88K. Yeah, just put it there. We're talking about it, so put it there. So let's not break out of this one. Let's not break out of this bear flag. We're respecting it. I guess I'd tighten it up a bit, maybe like that. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Tighten it up. And then, of course, is there some divergence there? We have higher lows and lower lows. Yeah. There's a little bit. This is hidden divergence, though. This is not like the grand poobah of bullish divergence. This is hidden. So at least it's not bearish, right? If we really want to make something more positive, it's not bearish. Is it that bullish? It's more bullish than bearish. But it's really just saying that, we might see a little more market equilibrium until dad comes home. And when dad comes home, if he does come home, we'll see the market change. And hopefully there is potential of unbelievable amount of confluence. You can understand and you can feel how the economic environment is slowly, maybe not slowly is the exact wrong word. It's speeding up. It's demolition. So they're going to have to take drastic measures. And now when they do take that drastic measures, we might see a little bit of reaction in Bitcoin price. That's because it sniffs out a rat. It's like the sociopath bartender owner that's looking at everyone. It can tell what's going to happen and then acts accordingly, right? So we might see an initial downward trajectory based on what is bullish news. And then, of course, Bitcoin will be the first to take off. And I think between maybe the rent-seeking reptilian parasitic class going back to work, maybe the economic data coming in, dogpiling in, all at the same time. Not that they don't. You think they don't know it? They're just not. This is when I go down to the conspiracy highway. It's like it's probably so bad they gotta shut down the government just so that this economic data doesn't leak to the public and the world, right? Because remember, it's the reserve currency. They can't really let everyone know how fast it's all falling apart. So they'll take drastic measures in order to preserve the valor of the US dollar. I don't think they can do it, right? So it's humble opinion of this piano that we're seeing a regime change in monetary policy, and the bridge will be Bitcoin. Now, however, will Bitcoin become the reserve currency? Eventually it will. But you have to understand, the rent-seeking reptilian parasitic class who have made generational wealth and has controlled the social engineering of our society and civilization has only been successful due to the printing of money. They're the banker in Monopoly. They always win. Isn't that funny? These bankers, they always win because they can print as much money as they want. And by the time the consequences come home to roost, they're dead, and they pass it on to their rent-seeking reptilian parasitic generation next, right? Like the George Soros's little retard kid there. You know, that's what happens. And then, but you know, one thing that works in their favor is that, you know, just like when you have, let's say, someone like Elon Musk, you know, the probability of his kids being as successful and well, they'll probably be as wealthy, but as successful is very low because they don't have the same motivation. They're already significant with their money. So there's a good chance that the next generation of rent-seeking reptilian parasite class will just fail naturally, because that's what happens. You know, this generation after usually blows all the money and implodes everything. And maybe that's what we'll see with the generation of rent-seeking reptilian parasite class. Now, over on the ding dong, we are desperately trying. We're following this thing. Let's move it over here. We're dead. See, you know, this is what I do. I like to leave on a little bullish something. I know the past couple streams have been a little dark, right? I know. YouTube doesn't like dark. They like ABB. Always be bullish, right? I just, you know, I tell it like it is. This, to me, is a spinning top candle. Now, why it's bullish is that I'm going to interpret it as a reversal, as it can be. You know, if we see a spinning top at the top of a run, well, it's probably a reversal in the opposite direction. So this, to me, if we were to do nothing for the next 4 days and close here, which is, again, we that's our second wick underneath the 50 moving average. So we're fighting it. You know, we're not putting in that we're not telling the bots that we're done. You know, this will tell the bots that we're done. We'll see a regime change back to like the bear. Sell it all, right? But this looks like a reversal candle, spinning top at the end of, well, this is 6 weeks, right? 6 weeks. What was this? End of September, maybe more, right? This would be hella bullish, and that would mean perhaps we end November and go into December heading to the moon. Make sure you like and subscribe and share.